Once upon a time, or so the story goes, Joseph Michel Montgolfier was watching his mother do the laundry. As he watched, Madame Anne Montgolfier, mother of 16 children, washed an elegant small garment and then hung it...
Just for a moment, we should acknowledge 16 children.
I know.
I don't know whether to applaud or to see if she needs to be broken out of prison.
Indeed. 16 children. It's a whole lot of children.
How does a body even do it? I don't get it. I do not get it. Anyway, well done, Madame
Montgolfier. Madame Montgolfier, mother of 16 children. She was washing an elegant small garment. And then she hung it over a small stove to
Go on, I'm listening.
Doesn't go that far. Over a small stove to dry. It dried and then gradually filled with hot air, and then, supposedly, rose to the ceiling of the room. Madame Montgolfier cried out. Her husband, Monsieur Pierre Montgolfier, came in and jumped on a table and freed the floating garment. And young Joseph Michel was intrigued. Welcome to the Wholesome Show, the underpants-based science podcast for people who sit up the back of the classroom.
And in which we ask all the pertinent underpants questions, particularly floating ones, so that you, dear listener, do not have to.
The Wholesome Show is me, Will Grant.
And me, Dr. Roderick Griffin Lamberts, although as I've been quoted or referred to in the newspaper today, one of Australia's leading science communicators. And I mean, I saw that and I thought, finally, I've been acknowledged by a small local newspaper. It must be true. I mean, you're in there.
Oh, I get it. I wasn't called one of...
To be fair, Will's done well, but I'm one of Australia's leading science communicators. And I think that's become apparent over the years.
Well, the Wholesome Show is brought to you by the Australian National Centre for the Public Awareness of Science, home of many of Australia's leading science communicators.
Soon to be renamed the Rudol's Griffin Lamberts Science Communication Centre, obviously.
I don't know that the listener land, they know that Rudol's is what you call yourself.
It's my special name.
Okay.
Also, to be fair, don't you have to be dead to have something like that named after you?
You should be dead. Realistically, you should never have anything named after you until you are dead, because you might do something really bad in your last year of life or something like that.
Oh, challenge accepted.
Get something named after you. And
we named it after him. Oh, fuck. We changed our minds.
Can we take it back?
That was a mistake. Yeah.
Joseph Michel and Jacques Etienne were, respectively, the 12th and 15th of Pierre and Anne Montgolfier's children.
Do you reckon they forgot who was in what order? Do you reckon they got to a point where they're like, am I 9th or am I 11th?
Oh, no, the kids know. Guaranteed the kids know. I'm sure the parents are like, you sort of happen somewhere around the middle and you were first child. All the rest, I don't care. I
mean, we had friends of the family who had 4 children and he would call out to all 4 boys and he'd forget by the 3rd name. Be like, Greg, Chris, the other 2.
Other Greg.
Exactly, so imagine 16. Jean-Pierre, etc. Come to me. Hurry, get in the stagecoach.
Well, I don't know much about many of the other children. I do know the names of one of them.
12th and 15th?
12th and 15th. I do know the names of one of the others, and he'll come up for a second. But I'm sorry to all of the other Montgolfier brothers and sisters. I know nothing about you. Now,
and there are 90 million descendants who are listening right now.
Some of them may. Don't know. Joseph Michel was the scruffy dreamer. He was technically very competent, but he was sort of a maverick thinker. Jacques Etienne was the business-minded. Now, neither of them, as 12th and 15th, were expected to take over the family paper manufacturing business. That job was for the one guy whose name I do know, Raymond. But in 1772... 1772, big brother Raymond died. And this is when Joseph Michel was 32. So big brother Raymond died.
So how old was his brother? Was Raymond 95 years old by this stage or something?
I don't know. I have no idea. He died of death. The things that you die of in 1772 is probably...
Well, as we learned a couple of episodes ago, he probably died from his heart stopping.
Oh,
Everything's heart-stopping.
Heart-stopping, or it might have been cramp or something like that.
Terrible cramp.
Yeah. But anyway, Raymond died, and Joseph Michel and Jacques Etienne were recalled back to Annonay in France, not in Paris, to run the family business. Now, for 10 years, the brothers ran the business well, incorporating some of the leading paper manufacturing innovations in the process. And as I was told while I was looking this up, paper manufacturing has always been a high-tech business. And so they brought some innovations from the Dutch, and they were doing really well.
The Dutch. Also, paper's a delicious thing. Like, nice paper is strangely attractive. I don't know why. I look at it and I touch it and I think I always want to buy notebooks, and I never use notebooks.
Me too. I love a good notebook. I don't use notebooks. I agree. No. But I think, they're such fascinating objects. And in fact, I'll tell you at the end, their paper manufacturing business is still in business, and which makes it nearly a 500-year-old company. Wow. Yeah, nearly 500 years old, and you can buy it, and you can buy it in an art shop now. It doesn't have the name Montgolfier, but
it's their company. It's just called something different, and no one runs it.
Well, as in, like, their factory kept going, and obviously maybe the money changed hands, and different bits of the family, they sold it off or whatever. But the factory is still going, and it is very high quality paper. It's the lovely stuff. It is not your ream of printer paper, which is still quite nice. No, this is the stuff that you draw your beautiful paintings on. Of course,
God,
I draw my beautiful
our spin-off podcast, Paper Porn. Keep talking. I just want to hear about the paper now. I don't care about the rest. Fuck the floating underpants.
I really wish I did have some with me now. I'm going to check in. I'm going to check in my drawer.
I'm disappointed, Will. I would have thought that you would have gone, my God, I'm doing something on paper. I have a paper fetish. I must have some of this allegedly Montgolfier named paper around.
I do have some lovely paper over there, but sadly, not the right brand. But next time I'm in the paper shop, I will be buying myself some beautiful paper.
I'm going to try and forgive you. So the factory kept going, blah, 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 you were saying?
Yes. But in 1782, they'd been running the business for 10 years. For some reason, the 42-year-old Joseph Michel remembered his mother's underpants. Now...
That's a statement without context.
Indeed. He's 42.
Do you know what I remember as a kid? My mother's underpants. Okay, we're going to keep addressing that in a moment. Yep.
Midlife crisis? I don't know. Well, he did say he'd been staring into the fire while contemplating one of the great military issues of the day.
His mother's underpants.
The French, as the French want to do, were at war with the English, as the English want to do. And a particular battle that was going on was around Gibraltar. Gibraltar, at the bottom of Spain, has been conquered many times by the English and held by the English. And the French were trying to assault the fortress of Gibraltar, which had proved impregnable, like giant underpants.
Sorry, my microphone was a problem there.
Yeah, well, yeah, and now you're right down the bottom. Did you lower your seat? Anyway, you're very short down the bottom there. But it was impregnable from both sea and land. So Joseph was there, he's thinking of his mother's underpants and looking into the fire, and he had an idea. Maybe an air assault. What we could do, remembering like my mother's underpants, we could do something with the fire and lift our troops up over the rock somehow.
So what we need is lots of ladies' underpants right now for military victory over those buggers in Gibraltar.
Oh, yeah. Step 1, underpants. Step 3, military victory.
Yes.
Step two, something to do with fire. Well, okay.
Flawless.
He worked in a paper factory. He owned a paper factory. So he had some ingredients. He had paper. He had wood. Why didn't he just do some goddamn science? So straight away, Joseph Michel built a small box. Well, it wasn't that small. It was about 1 meter cubed, 1 meter by 1 meter, something like that, out of very thin wood, and covered the sides and top with paper and light taffeta cloth. He crumpled
taffeta.
Yeah, taffeta. Ooh. Yeah, he had some of that as well.
Taffeta.
He crumpled and lit some paper under the bottom of the box. The contraption quickly lifted off its stand and collided with the ceiling. "Oh my fucking God," said Joseph. And
Did he really?
He exactly.
In the French, "Oh my fucking Lord."
He ran to his brother. "Get in a supply of taffeta and of cordage quickly, and you'll see one of the most astonishing sights in the world." So straight away, he wanted to go bigger. So the brothers built a similar device. It was the same sort of box, but they multiplied by 3. So this was first 1 meter cubed. Then they
Hang on, let
went
me do the
to
maths. 3 meter cubes.
yes, but not 3 cubic meters, 27 cubic meters. So 3 by 3 by
3
3.
by 3 by 3.
They're getting bigger.
Yeah, that is big.
So underneath, they lit some wool and some hay, and the lifting force was so great that they lost control of their craft. The device floated nearly 2 kilometres into some neighbouring fields, and some peasants found it and quickly destroyed it.
I bet they did. Because no doubt the work of the devil.
Yes, very much so. Well, there's multiple reasons. Peasants will continue with a similar reaction throughout this story. Not always about
they still do today. It's called anti-maskers.
Yeah, probably. Anyway, the business-minded one, Jacques Etienne, he had an idea. Advertising. So he thought, you know what? Did
he invent advertising? Is this actually going to turn into a story
This
about
is
that?
the story of advertising. No, it's not. Although that would be fascinating. He said, look, let's scale this shit up. Let's make a public demonstration. Because what he wanted to do, he wanted to claim this as their invention, and he wanted to bring a whole bunch of people together. So he made a bigger version, and this is yet bigger again. It's 790 cubic meters, held together by sackcloth and 1,800 buttons. And he brought together all of the...
Wait, 1,800 buttons?
Yes. I don't know.
So they made this thing button up.
They had some buttons left over.
We're going to button it all up. We could sew it or staple it. No, we're going to button it.
Buttons. What will
That's
hold
adorable.
What will hold it airtight is buttons.
Buttons. I mean, my shirt, no air gets into my shirt, so why the hell wouldn't it be the same for this balloon?
Buttons were the most airtight joining they had back then.
They were simple at times.
Maybe they were. Like, it was either that or you just loosely hold the fabric over the top of each other.
Oh, that's true. You need some serfs to cling onto it somehow. The peasants came back to hold on. So 1 million buttons.
1 million buttons, and then he wrote to all of Annonay. I don't know if he put posters up or something like that, but he said, all of Annonay, come and check this shit out. We are going to do some wild stuff. And so, on the 4th of June, 1783, the Montgolfier brothers went into Annonay and flew a balloon in front of all of the dignitaries, all of the peasants of the town. I don't know how many you can see in there, but to me, it looks like quite a few hundred people.
And that's obviously a photograph, so it's probably true.
Indeed, it's a photograph of a drawing, which is the amazing technology they had back then.
That makes it extremely accurate. If it's a photograph of a drawing, that's double confirmed.
They couldn't possibly lie with the numbers, but you do see that the crowd sort of becomes just rough pencil strokes at the edge. But anyway, it looks to me like quite a lot of people.
Also, some of the old photos and the old drawings, rather, of hot air balloon folks, they fascinated me since I was a child.
Oh, you're going to tell me?
They all look amazing, these wild shapes. And yeah, people looking on enthralled, they're amazing.
Look,
that's a cool photo. Drawing. Indeed.
Look, we'll get into how amazing it was back then.
Yeah.
The balloon went up 2 kilometres and across 2 kilometres in whatever the wind.
2 kilometres.
Yeah, up. That's an estimate. Something. I was
going to say, how do they measure it?
Yeah. Oh no, they had like triangles. I guess they did a bit of Pythagoras trigonometry. They said, okay, if that's a tree, you multiply the tree by something like that. Get the angles.
9.5 trees, 2 kilometres.
Something like that. Lasted for 10 minutes up in the air, and eventually crashed down in a field, and some peasants destroyed it.
There's that fucking demon again.
If you hold on in a sec, I will show you. For a later one, there is actually a nice drawing of peasants destroying the balloon. But anyway, word of their success quickly reached Paris, and Balloonomania was born.
Oh, what a time to be alive.
Okay. One of the first to get the bug of Balloonomania, apart from the Montgolfier brothers, was Barthélemy Faujas de Saint-Fond. He was
Bartholomew Barjas, the what?
I'm going to call him de Saint-Fond. De Saint-Fond.
The cell phone.
De cell phone. De Saint-Fond. Yes. Yeah. Okay. I'm sure he's very upset called the cell phone. He was a volcano specialist at the Jardin du Roi, and he immediately launched a crowdfund to build his own balloon. So within a couple of weeks of the news getting out, there's a variety of teams that have all started to go, okay, this shit's wild, let's try. So, awesome. The elite of Paris chipped in. So he got Paris's most popular lecturer and physicist, Jacques Alexandre César Charles. He joined in. a whole bunch of other, the elite, the Duc d'Orleans, I think, Orleans, he put money in. But Saint-Fond and Charles had a problem because nothing in the accounts of the Annonay balloon had said what kind of gas the Montgolfier brothers had used to get the balloon to go up. They knew that
very specific about what buttons you were supposed to apply to it, though.
Indeed.
Just buttons.
Which buttons where? In fact, the Montgolfier brothers themselves didn't know. So Joseph Michel, he thought it was something special about the smoke. The smoke had some buoyancy bits in it, which he, of course, called the Montgolfier gas, which had a special property he called levity, which sounds to me like a little bit of a tautology. But he didn't know, but they did have some suspicions that it was something to do with the fire. But
it's pretty cool that there was this race, though. I mean, it's kind of like SpaceX now, the equivalent. You got all these private companies piling on in and going, "Let's get there." It's
only literally. It was 100% a race, but also the crowds were 100,000% behind this. I'll get you some crowd.
Hell yeah!
I'll get you some crowd numbers in a bit. But it was a race, and these people were total celebrities, and they were just going. So Charles said, "Don't worry. Even though we don't know what they used to get it up, I've got this cool gas, which we call inflammable air." He'd been used it in his physics demonstrations. Now, inflammable air had been discovered 17 years earlier by the British chemist Henry Cavendish, and it's got the modern name of hydrogen. So
that's the use of inflammable, which means highly, 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 highly fucking flammable.
Indeed, yeah. Yeah, it's not low flammable, high flammable.
What is that, though?
High flammable air.
Inflammable or flammable? Yes, it is.
Dumbest word in the world, but not the French fault. I don't know whose fault it is. But
at least like famous and infamous. So if you're infamous, you're famous for bad reasons.
Yeah.
If you're famous, you're probably famous for good reasons. So maybe it's if you're flammable for good reasons. Inflammable means wicked.
Yeah, wicked
flammable.
You're burning for wicked reasons.
Yes.
I don't know what. Coal, there you go. Coal is inflammable.
Inflammable.
What is a nice flammable?
The sun.
The sun. I actually don't think the sun is flammable.
No, it's not flammable at all.
Well, it is hydrogen, but it's doing something different. Anyway.
Yeah, details. Physics, whatever. We don't get into science here.
So Charles and his team whipped up a machine to pump out the special inflammable air, and they, too, built themselves a balloon. So here's their machine. You can see at the bottom there, pumping out what we know is now hydrogen gas.
That's wild.
I didn't research the chemistry to look that up, but it's some sort of.
No, you did. It's hydrogen.
Yeah, exactly.
That's chemistry.
The high with the drigen. Now, on the 27th of August, 1783. So this is what are we going to say? About 8 weeks after the Montgolfiers went up in Annonay. The Charles team, the Saint-Fond team, in a demonstration site that's very close to where the Eiffel Tower is now in Paris, a huge crowd gathered. We don't have numbers on this crowd, but I'll get you some numbers on some later crowds.
I'm going to say 4 million.
No. But it lined both banks of the Seine and the road to Versailles. They had ticket holders were allowed into the temporary enclosure around the balloon. And at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the balloon was released from its moorings, and I like this, rose into the sky at what was described as a dizzying rate. Like I think the hydrogen one went off like.
So if it's possible, it plummeted into the sky. That's what it sounds like to me.
Absolutely. Like I do believe the hot air balloons at the time were lifting more gracefully. There was thrust. They were going up. They were doing, but the hydrogen one may have just gone.
And it's gone. Anyway, it definitely flew. Congratulations.
The crowd was stunned. So overcome with emotion and enthusiasm, many spectators embraced and burst into tears, which sounds like a French crowd. It sounds beautiful.
I'm so happy.
Eventually, high in the sky, the pressure of the hydrogen burst the balloon. So the outside wasn't enough to keep it in anymore. And
they need more buttons.
It burst and ripped, and the tattered remnants drifted down 45 minutes later into a group of peasants 20 kilometres north of Paris. The peasants, there you go, apparently were stricken with terror, their first thought being that some foul-smelling monster had fallen on them. Confused, then furious, the group attacked. In just a few minutes, the balloon's envelope had been torn to shreds.
This mead has fallen from the sky. We must kill it, We must kill this shit before it kills us. Fuck, that's great, isn't it, though? What's that? Fucking kill it!
I love peasants. Peasants are the best.
Stay tuned for our other spin-off podcast, I Love Peasants.
Oh, they tied the remnants of the balloon to the tail of a horse and dragged it across the field to the village. Now, as a result of this, the government, who, as we'll cover in a second, was very interested in all of this, had to put out a public notice saying, don't worry, the balloons are harmless. So, anyway.
This is friendly balloon. The enemy balloons will come from the Germans.
Yeah, they will. Actually, no, much later. Etienne Montgolfier rushed to the capital. They didn't want to lose out on claiming their invention. You know, flight, being the first person to fly, to get people off the ground. They didn't want to lose their claim to what's going on here.
Not insignificant.
Now, Joseph did come to Paris eventually, but at first he didn't, because he was the scruffy and unkempt one. And I don't know how scruffy he was, but Etienne...
For a Frenchman, his shoes were not polished, you know, and sometimes his hat was on an awkward angle.
Etienne was the epitome of sober virtues, modest in clothes and manner. So I think it was held that was what was necessary next. Anyway.
So scruffy equals not sober.
Being in the paper business, the Montgolfiers knew, of course, their friend Jean-Baptiste Révillon, who was a wallpaper manufacturer. So they got together, paper manufacturer and wallpaper manufacturer, and financed by the Ministry of Finance and the Academy of Sciences in Paris, Montgolfier set out doing something big. They had to claim the spectacle back. So Etienne and Révillon worked day and night to build another balloon, again made out of taffeta, with a varnish of alum for fireproofing. The balloon was sky blue and decorated with golden flourishes, signs of the zodiac and suns.
Why? You're going to launch something into the sky. You want to do advertising. What colour do you make it? Sky coloured.
Well, it does look nice.
Of course it does. It's like, can you see it? I can't.
It's really hard to see.
Let's make it blue. No, there are many other colours to choose. Let's choose the one thing that is the backdrop against which this thing will be launched. I mean, there's gold spangles. Okay, I'll give him that.
And it literally did say sky blue. So, you know,
fuck me.
Like, you could have even chosen a different blue. Like,
yeah, navy. That's okay. So the marketing genius, still developing.
All right. Now, so far, all of the tests had been with just balloons. So hydrogen or hot air, but just balloons with nothing underneath them. But everyone knew what needed to happen next. We needed to get some goddamn people up there.
Yeah, strap a dude to it. Yeah,
indeed. Now, there were some concerns, however, of what would happen to a person when they get into the upper atmosphere. People were a little bit, So the king came up with a solution. This is King Louis XVI. He came up with a solution. Why don't you put 2 convicted criminals underneath?
Good call. Good call. When in doubt, experiment on the baddies.
Now,
love it.
I don't know if this was because they were squeamish or modern or possibly selfish, but Montgolfier said, no, let's not do that. Instead, let's do animals.
I was going to say, let's whack a goat up there. That'll be fine.
Indeed. So they got 3 animals underneath a balloon. They got a sheep.
An orangutan, a fish,
giraffe.
And some kind of insect. A giraffe.
No, what do they get? They got a sheep called Montesil, which means climb to the sky. And that was believed to have a reasonable approximation of human physiology. So
sheep and humans are easy to confuse. It's true.
I think they were going with something human-sized. We need something.
Yeah, I was going to say it's based on mass.
But they do come with a woolly jumper, so I think that's
true.
That's
Keep warm up there.
Then the duck was the control, because it was expected to be unharmed by being lifted off the ground. And so any effects that would happen to the duck would have been caused by the aircraft rather than by the altitude. And
that's well thought through. And also the duck has its own escape path.
Indeed. And so then they needed a control for the control. I'm not quite sure why. So they got a rooster, because they thought it's like the duck, but it's not very good at flying at high altitudes. So
or at all. So turducken kind of arrangement here.
Yeah. So sheep, duck, and rooster. There we go. So that was the science. That's what they wanted to do. Now,
That was the science. I mean, that's science is doing a lot of heavy lifting in that one. But I see what you're saying.
hey, look, this is like the third time they've got things off the ground at all.
The rooster's the problem, though. Why would you have two winged animals? Like, you had one winged animal, I get it. That's fine. If anything else has gone wrong, ducks can fly.
They needed something like the duck, maybe a
Like
penguin.
a marmot, an ape. I mean, something other.
Where we go. So what I want to flip to is the event. Now, this thing was a goddamn event. It was huge. So, firstly, it was going to be held something really weird in the gardens of the Palace of Versailles. Now, this is
delicious,
totally unusual. I mean, it's a beautiful place, but nothing like this had ever been held at Versailles. So there was the court.
Because it was still a monarchy then, so that would have been very
very monarchical.
out of bounds, yeah.
Very out of bounds. Well, people went there. But it would be very formalized, very hierarchical. But instead...
No disheveled Montgolfiers allowed there.
I'm going to show you a photo in a second. The event was scheduled for 1 p.m. in the afternoon of September 19th, 1783. So we're still only 2 months after the original balloon. In the gardens of Versailles. And so Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette were there, as well as a whole bunch of diplomats from England and America, because they were there to sign the peace treaty from the War of Independence. So there was a lot of people there. But by 10 in the morning, all of the avenues and highways leading to Versailles were chocked with carriage traffic. No one could get in. Then armies of pedestrians and sedan chairs struggled to make their way on foot towards the Court of Ministries.
Not the sedan chair. Excuse me, I cannot walk. You need to get out of my way. It's like, get off your chair and get rid of your slaves, you idiot.
No way. Who gets off their chair? You make the people walk faster.
This is difficult to get through the crowds. The crowd should move.
And you have a little bell or something like that to ding people out of the way.
But as if you wouldn't go, though. I mean, wow.
Oh, totally. So people were swarming all over the courtyard, the surrounding avenues. Some were even climbing onto rooftops. Now, one person, so people thought this is earth-shattering. So one one might say with Ovid that many things will now be done that hitherto have been regarded as impossible. And in fact, this is a different story. But a whole bunch of, Simon Schama, his book on the French Revolution, says this didn't cause the French Revolution, but it was only 6 years later that these same crowds came back and said, and now we want your head. But that's a different story, but it's...
Coincidence? You tell me.
Exactly. But anyway...
I saw a sheep fly, now fuck the king.
Here's again a drawing, but it's thought that possibly 100,000, maybe 130,000 people... were swarming into the grounds of Versailles. There was a special spot for the king and the queen. Beyond that, it was just a big throng. And so,
really, everyone else, there was no special seating, nothing.
This is what Sharma reckons, that it changes a little bit when people are all of a sudden seeing the world as like there's no hierarchies. We're all enthralled to the balloon. I don't know, but
sure, no, that's definitely. There's no question that's what happened.
So, at about 1 p.m, the balloon began inflating. And then things happened pretty quickly. So the balloon took shape. The lines holding it were cut. It immediately rose, lifting skyward with the 3 animal aeronauts. The crowd roared. Shortly after lifting off, the balloon was caught by a gust of wind. It tilted, and it wasn't the most glorious flight that there ever was. So it stayed up there for 10 minutes and 3 kilometers, but everyone there was just like, holy shit, this is wild. And so the bug
literally
continued.
Nothing had been flown before. No living thing other than things that could fly had been put into the air by man-made forces.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That's
People were just
wild. I mean, imagine it in reality. That would have been mind-blowing, like beyond comprehension.
I just think, wow. And people were. Everyone was saying that what else? I'll come to a quote a little bit later on. What else is possible now? Like this is earth-shattering. And so one of the people that was there in the crowd and instantly got the ballooning bug, the Balloonomania, was Jean-François Pilatre de Rosier. And
I guess.
Indeed, I knew you were going to say de Rosier. So everyone knew what was coming next. They had done empty balloons. Mm-hmm. They had done balloons with sheep and ducks and roosters. It's humans. That we need to do next. Now,
back to the prisons.
There's a bit of a dispute here. What actually happened next? Because whilst there's going to be, I'll tell you a story of a couple of launches that definitely have people and who claims to be the first. Both the Montgolfier team and de Rosier appear to have undertaken test flights with human passengers in the middle of October 1783, but before they did big public stuff. But the difficulty is,
Well, that's fair.
once you're up in the air, they kind of become public. Like this, Paris wasn't as might have had a population of 800,000 then, but it's still once your balloon's in the air, people can see it.
Also, it sounds to me, unless you've just missed that bit for now, the whole descent policy has not been strong.
They were
When you think about how you sell it, would you like to be the first one up? Sure. How do I get down? Well, you'll probably land in a field and be kicked to death by peasants.
They would. Well, actually, De Rossier's got a nice peasant story in a second. Yeah, look, they weren't super strong on the how you get down. Parachutes were actually, I'm not really going to cover the parachutes in this story, were actually a very close, similar invention. Like people were thinking, and what do we do to get down? So not very long later, people are parachuting from balloons. But that's, I'm not exploring that now.
There's one where you want to go first? No.
So, yeah, it appears that De Rossier's team made a test flight on like the 15th of October, and Montgolfier might have done something around then as well. I don't know if Etienne did it because it appears he was a bit too squeamish for doing this. Joseph Michel, the original inventor, may have only gone up once and said, never doing that again. Montgolfier's dad, in fact, said, no, don't do this. This is too dangerous. And Etienne might not have done it again after that.
Dad, there's 14 more of us. Don't worry about it. You'll be fine.
Yeah, I know. And this is when these boys are boys. They're in their mid-40s, and so their dad's telling them, don't do it. Go up there. But anyway.
It got to be tricky, though, wouldn't it? I mean, you'd want to fly because, holy fuck, you're flying, and you would be literally the first human being.
Absolutely.
But the landing.
So the interesting thing. Now, I'm not going to get to this point. How brave some of these people got not very long afterwards. Like there's a great story. So the guy that I'll come to his story in a little bit. Who first crosses the English Channel. We'll tell that story in a second. But his wife, she became a professional hot air balloonist all around Europe. And there's one point when her balloon, not the balloon, the basket underneath got a bit derailed or something like that. So she just cut it off, and she's just dangling from the ropes up there. It's just okay. Or it's
The basket is fucked. I'm just going to hang on with my hands.
Yeah, fine.
Cool.
How sweaty do your hands get when you're hanging on? I'm
thinking you wrap them. You get the rope around your hands a little bit.
Look, maybe.
I'm no expert though.
Maybe there were some knots. Anyway, so on the 17th of October, this appears to be the first sort of official claim to actual flying in front of a crowd. De Rossier made the public spectacle that history books needed, ascending 100 meters into the air above the Revillon workshop. I think this is just on so the balloon goes up, but it's on a rope so you can pull them down.
I was going to say tethered for sure. Yeah. It must be. Yeah.
A huge crowd saw this. And so the king said, we need to see more of this. We're going to see the proper demonstration back here at Versailles, or in front of me anyway. And lots of the other elites joined in. So the Marquis d'Arlandes joined in as well.
Yeah,
now
he would have. He was that kind of guy.
The Montgolfier brothers and De Rossier joined teams because they wanted to beat the other team, the Charles Saint-Fond team. Montgolfier wasn't certain. He was still unsure about the whole thing because he wasn't loving being famous, and they were very famous, and no one was looking after the paper factory. But eventually, they all talked him around. They said, "All right, we got to do this in front of the king."
Dude, seriously, go do it. Yeah.
So, November 21st, De Rossier and the Marquis d'Arlandes climbed into a Montgolfier balloon with the king looking on. Now, at 1:55 in the afternoon, the petrified crowd was hushed. Never a deeper silence reigned on earth. Admiration, terror, and pity could be read on all the faces. The Marquis saluted the crowd with a handkerchief, and the lines were cut.
That's not a salute. A little flicky of my kerchief.
I kind of like to have your own little personal flag you could wave like that.
Yeah. Well, look, you should do that. You should start all your lectures that way.
The throng exploded and the crowd went wild as they sailed over Paris. People climbed onto the top of the towers of the Notre Dame to look on, which is quite high.
Yeah.
Eventually, when they landed beyond the walls of the city, peasants rushed to the men and tore off de Rosier's top coat and ripped it to pieces for souvenirs.
Well, that's different to beating the shit out of him and eating his remains because of the devil.
They were unsure. There were certainly people who. There was another story about de Rosier. Like the peasants picked over every bit of food that was in his basket when they landed, as if I'm not sure if they were hungry or if they were treating this as relics from the sky. There were certainly people that were talking at the time like the balloon is a connection with the heavens, and therefore it's been up there, so it's a bit of a gift from God or something like that, or it was
you
just
can imagine
a monster.
the 1700s eBay is like, this is literally a piece of a top coat that went into the sky.
Totally.
Got to be 9 billion francs, whatever they use then.
I don't know. No, it might have been Frank's. I don't know.
Sure.
A week later, the hydrogen team, Charles Semfond, and they're joined by some other people.
Safety first team, yep.
Yeah, not really. Yeah, no, not at all. But they did another launch in the middle of Paris. Supposedly 400,000 people, which is half of Paris, joined in. Now, at this point, I don't know the counting techniques of 1783. Our crowd estimates now are wildly off. But 400,000, God, that's a lot of people.
Christ, if it was 20,000, it would be a lot of people. Make it 400? Fuck, why not? I'm going to say 425.
Yeah, sure. Split the not difference, something.
Yeah,
but anyway, but I get it. You know, what are you going to do? Bake bread in your boulangerie or go out and watch someone either fly up into the air or fly up into the air and die.
Even better, you mean?
Even better, indeed.
We get a spectacle both ways with this situation. It's fabulous.
Charles, the
sorry, one thing I was going to ask, I didn't want to interrupt because obviously I don't like to do that, but you said the first guys landed. Is there much detail about the landing? Or they just happened to not be in the sky anymore and they were okay?
They just, for most of the hot air balloons, they just run out of hot air. Like they run out of hot. And down they come. So the original ones the very first ones at Annonay, they're lighting a fire on the ground and then up they go. Then eventually they're realizing, okay, if you take the fire with you, you can stay up there a little bit longer. But basically their control mechanism, and we'll come to control in a little bit because it's quite amusing. Originally they didn't have any except for if you put more wood onto the brazier, then it'll stay up a bit longer.
So basically, unless something goes wrong, it just slowly cools and you...
Yeah. And that's not the worst thing. So that was the problem with the hydrogen balloons. They're permanently buoyant, and so you don't have as much control. So they could let gas out or something like that. But the hot air balloons would literally just go up and down like that. I
feel more comfortable now. I now will go in one.
It's safe.
I've been in one already.
Basically safe. Yes. Charles took up a bottle of champagne because he's French and drank it above the crowd. One woman, and here's what I was saying before, one woman watching was so ecstatic that she declared, "They will eventually find the secret of eternal life, and by then I will be dead."
And now I've had 9 orgasms as well. It's wonderful. They will find the secret of life, by then I will be dead.
So this was
an unusual quote.
I think she was a bit bitter. I think she was feeling like she's missing out. She's
bitter or excited?
She was excited about science and the secret of eternal life, but she also felt that she wouldn't get the fruits of it. Maybe she wanted to be in the balloon.
Bittersweet. Yeah, she was the original story of Bittersweet then.
So all 6 of these original balloonists, the Montgolfier brothers, de Rosier, d'Alens, Charles, and Robert, were given various sorts of membership of the Academy of Science.
Sure.
And for some reason, the Montgolfier father was given nobility for successfully producing, obviously, 16 children, but 2 sons who've done something decent.
That's true. 1/8 of your roots led to something really quite remarkable.
1/8 of your roots.
Well, I mean, they were Catholic or some religion, therefore you only have sex for procreation, right?
Indeed, of course. Yeah. Of course. Okay. That's how the magic happens.
Yeah.
Now, Balloonomania, it's worth it took off all over Paris. So balloons came everywhere. So people would say this is our balloon, of the balloon, and sales would increase. So heaps of ceramics like plates and cups and saucers and stuff like that did all over. Yeah. There's a whole bunch of things. Apparently they were depicting hydrogen balloons more than hot air balloons. I don't know why. Maybe that was easier, or maybe they were
How could you tell the difference?
They looked a little bit. Remember by the thing down the hydrogen balloons are more like a ball, and
hydrogen
hot air
ball.
balloons have. Here we go.
More like a teardrop.
More like a teardrop. Have an opening.
So hydrogen balloons, you fill them and then you seal them off and off they go.
Yes. They have a small little seal.
In that system. Yeah. Yes, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
Where were we? So what do they do? They had balloon style hats, balloon style hair.
Please tell me your photos.
No, there are caricatures like this is people.
My balloon haircut. I don't even. My imagination is borfing here. That's a wild. This is my balloon.
I want to see balloon. Make it big.
That's wild.
No, there were caricatures that people did, but I couldn't find any pictures of that. Balloons on waistcoats, balloons on gloves. Sure. The liqueur a balloon, playing cards, walking sticks, bidets.
Of course. And surely underpants in honor of the original inspiration.
Oh, no doubt. Bloomers a la balloon.
Balloonmas, nice.
Snuff boxes, hair clips, pocket watches, doorknobs, small boxes, buttons, clocks, armchairs, beds, work tables, wallpaper, everywhere.
Small boxes. I'm looking for a small box. Here's an eraser. Do you have any with a balloon motif?
Balloon shaped.
Fuck you and your stupid emporium. I'm going to a small box place with balloons.
Oh, the other thing, toy balloons. So, this is when toy balloons were invented. In fact, they seem to have hit the market on the same day or the day before. People were going out to Versailles to watch that first flight. So when was that? In September. So people, and of course, because they're cool, they filled them with hydrogen, and there was a little bit of a problem with that.
Have you done that?
Filled a balloon with hydrogen. No, I haven't.
Have you made these balloons?
No, I haven't, sadly.
We made these balloons and we did the smart thing. We waited till we were in our 20s and may or may not have been partaking of things that modify your perception of the world and your ability to be responsible. So we built a couple of small balloons. Sometimes we generated hydrogen. Sometimes we...
How are you generating hydrogen?
Like you get aluminium and another substance I won't mention and the gas.
Okay.
Thing. So we did that, but then we made this monster balloon one day. During fireworks season. This balloon was taller than me. We filled it up with hydrogen because we're geniuses. We strapped a whole long line of firecrackers to the bottom of it. And we set it off and it wafted off across to the neighbor's house, got caught in their pine tree, which is an enormous tall tree.
Oh, no.
And fucking exploded. And we could see from the roof, we're watching from the roof, and we could see the neighbor in his lounge room sitting in his recliner chair watching TV. And suddenly his front yard erupted. He jumped out of it. He teleported out of his chair and started wailing and ran out into the street. And we were just hiding behind the...
How do you hose down a pine tree?
It went out, thank Christ. But my God, these things explode. Like the first effort we made aborted. It just started to float. I lit the fuse on the firecrackers and it sank back down to earth and exploded. And I was deaf for 2 days.
See, this is. I might have told you this before, but I'm not a huge fan of fireworks. I get really bored really quickly, and if you've got like a half an hour fireworks show, it's like it's the same thing over and over again. What I want in fireworks is something like you describe. I mean, maybe a little bit of fireworks, and then a whole lot of suspense. You don't know when it's going to go off, but sometime in the next 4 minutes, this massive explosion over the middle of Sydney Harbour is just going to shock everyone there. Everyone's going to be deaf for 2 days, and it's going to be hilarious.
You may go blind yourself if you time it
right. No permanent damage. No permanent damage, but just enough to really...
We can do that. We'll do an event. When COVID is over and we're allowed to do an event, we'll do a Wholesome show presents how to be...
One giant explosion.
Yes.
So yes, very quickly the government had to ban people from producing hydrogen at home because of the explosions that people were doing.
Yes.
So how did the academics react? Academics, as you can tell...
Thoughtfully.
Yes, thoughtfully. Well, give me some other emotions that you think the academics might have...
Outrage, delight, confusion, miffedness because they weren't the first.
Yes,
that would have been a big one.
They were miffed. They were a little bit outraged. They were a little bit cooler. They were like, "Oh, it's not going to be so good.
It's okay,
but I would like to use one myself. Maybe I will have a go. Just if you let me, then I will tell you if it's any good." So there's some English quotes here from Joseph Banks and Samuel Johnson. And they're like, I don't know what value it can possibly have.
What?
They were a bit confused.
Flight. Ability to make things fly. What value could it have?
They didn't. Well, okay, they did think up things pretty quickly.
Yeah,
So the first things that academics. This is Joseph Banks. He suggested that balloons could be used as a counterbalancing on the weight of a stagecoach to make them easier to move over the ground. So you would have your horses, stagecoach, and then a balloon above the stagecoach, and then it would kind of float. It would be on the ground, but just a little bit above the ground. Which
this is the same argument I used to use when gyms were open with the personal trainers. They go, okay, what I want you to do now is these body weight things. You're like, could we strap some balloons to me? My body weight proving to be a little bit much right now. So me and Joseph Banks pretty much the same guy.
There you go. So that didn't get off the ground.
Did it
sadly.
not?
Others thought exploration. This is what it's all about. We could trace the course of the Nile or something like that. So Percy Shelley, who I believe is the brother of Mary Shelley, he wrote of this. It would seem that balloons are a mere toy, a feather in comparison to the splendid anticipations of the philosophical chemist. Yet it ought not to be altogether condemned. It promises prodigious faculties for locomotion and will allow us to traverse vast tracts with ease and rapidity and to explore unknown countries without difficulty. Here we go. Why are we so ignorant of the interior of Africa? Why do we not dispatch intrepid aeronauts to cross it in every direction and to survey the whole peninsula in a few weeks? The shadow of the first balloon, as it glided over that unhappy country, would virtually emancipate every slave and would annihilate slavery forever.
Okay. Well, it's good to know I could do that.
They've seen a balloon and slavery is gone.
They're free. Maybe they should try that in the US at the moment. Instead of going in with federal forces, waft a balloon over Portland.
Maybe. Well, people were very entranced with balloons. I get it.
Look, and I get it. I get that, but I do love the poetry too. It's like, why use one word when 1,000 will do?
Oh, they are so wordy back then. They're so wordy. John Jeffreys was one of the first to start saying, hang on, let's be slower here. We can do like science in here. We can take some tools up like a barometer, thermometer, see if it's colder up there or hotter up there, atmosphere, weather. We can do some weather sort of stuff. So he was pretty keen on that. And other people thought of pretty early on, like William Herschel, who discovered Herschel's things, I think. He said, let's take telescopes up there. That'd be good.
Look at me. I found these. Yeah.
I don't know. Some sort of Herschel's in the sky. Herschel's in the sky. Now.
My name's Herschel. I've discovered some things. Well done, Herschel. Phenomenal.
So let's get back to the next big goal. The next big goal, as you can imagine, they've got people up. The next big thing for a space race is crossing the English Channel. And so the French were really proud of ballooning at this point. They were like, we have conquered the sky. The English, they love the sea, but we have done sky. And so they thought, we've conquered this. This is the space race analogy, without a drop of blood. And so the government said, all right, huge reward if you can cross the English Channel.
Preferably with a drop of blood as well.
Oh, sure. They'd be happy with that. The problem...
If you can kill a Frenchman as well, that'd be fucking fantastic.
The problem that they had originally was propulsion. So they were getting better at going up and coming down, but they didn't know how to do it. So the first to try and work this out was Jean-Pierre Blanchard, who is one of the most famous early balloonists.
Damn right he is.
So he first tried oars. So they go up in a balloon, and he had these giant oars, and I don't know what they actually look like. That's a drawing. I've got another one here.
They do look like giant feathers.
Yeah, these ones here look more like just regular oars.
Hold it up a bit higher.
Oh, there you go.
Oh yeah. Okay, they do look like oars.
Like they're sitting in a boat. That's got some
with
oars.
A balloon, couple of flags because that's important. And if you think oars will work, why would a flag be a problem?
So I'm assuming some of the first ones were largy, feathery sorts. I mean, that would make sense to me. Or maybe palm fronds. They'd be nice. You sticky tape all the bits together.
That's a good idea, and it's more environmental.
So to practice his rowing technique, he took off in Paris in March 1784. So this is the next year. And apparently Napoleon tried to jump onto that flight, or he later said, no, it wasn't me, it was my friend. I don't know. And he attempted to row to the northeast, but the wind carried him to the southwest. But he declared it was a success. So
sure, very Trumpian of him.
He said, "I controlled it a little bit." He added flapping some vanes and a windmill somehow, a windmill that looked like an Archimedes screw, which I don't know how that's done. Anyway,
I'm not seeing it.
Anyway,
I'm seeing the image, but I'm not seeing the function.
he moved to England and he made friends with Dr. John Jeffries, who was the science guy that wanted to put some stuff up there, and said, okay, you pay for it and then we'll cross the Atlantic and that'd be good. And Jeffries said, yeah, I'll pay for it so long as I can come with you. Blanchard said yes, but then when he got to Dover Castle, he locked the doors behind him and didn't let Jeffries in.
Can't play.
I want to be by myself. He basically he wanted to do it all by himself. So eventually the governor of the castle said, let him in, come on. And then Blanchard tried another trick. He put a whole lot of lead in his jacket to make it look to make it really heavy when they did the weighing in, to see how much weight the balloon could hold. And then the plan was that it's too heavy, you can't come. Apparently Jeffries discovered this, but said, it's fine, mate, don't worry, I know, we'll just go.
It'll be cool. Yeah,
So
don't
anyway,
worry about it.
Anyway, both of them went up. 7th of January, 1785. The two men lifted off in a hydrogen balloon, and they had oars and a propeller. I think it was a little winding propeller, something like that.
That makes the most sense of everything you've described so far.
The balloon quickly began to lose altitude. And so they had to start dumping ballast. And obviously they start with ballast. So they had a whole bunch of sand.
They start with the lead in that guy's coat?
Well, they got rid of that quickly. That's gone.
That's good.
I think they didn't even start with that. I think they didn't launch. That ploy didn't work. They got rid of all the sand. 2/3 of the way across the English Channel, all the sand is gone.
The sand, they were just taking that as a...
Ballast. In case you need to move up, you have sand there, or to have a little beach scene. No, so that you can control your weight.
Genuine English sand, I think you'd be happy. Okay, so they got rid of the sand.
But they were still lowering. So Blanchard said, all right, chuck it all over. Scientific equipment's got to go. Any ornamentation, I don't know what ornamentation they had. Some paintings.
We're getting rid of the paintings. We're getting rid of the pottery. Like I have this nice, this gourd.
Overboard.
Yeah, get rid of it. The statue, that sculpture, the mini of statue of David, fuck that off too. We've got to make this make sense.
The propeller went overboard.
The propeller.
The oars and the anchors. I'm not so worried about the anchors. I would have chucked the anchors long before the propeller and the oars, but maybe he knew that the oars were doing nothing anyway. Everything went over. Next, Blanchard's like, we're still going down. He threw off his waistcoat, threw that overboard, and then
gentleman never does that.
And then he threw off his pants. And
to be fair, that would have been my go-to.
I get it.
Well, in the interest of science, I'm taking off my pants.
The Englishman Jeffries agreed with the waistcoat solution, but he couldn't take off his waistcoat. That was his pants. That was a bit too far. 2 hours after they left, Blanchard and Jeffries, numb and delirious with joy, flew over the French coast and landed safely near Guinness.
2 hours?
Not too long.
That's impressive.
I think they did take some snacks. Now,
actually, to be fair, what's impressive is that they did it at all.
Yeah. And they
did it in a time that's very reasonable.
This was only, what are we talking, 18 months after the very first flight. So they moved so rapidly here. Now, at the same time, de Rosier was of the original hydrogen flight, and he was the first person to go up in the balloon, or in the story. He wanted the government reward as well. He wanted to go from the other direction. So he actually was rigged up and ready from France, the same sort of time, but the prevailing winds were against him. And for weeks and months, he just sat around waiting. Now,
he needed better oars or something to go against.
Well, he did have a different solution for trying to control things, which might have caused a problem. So he had said, what we need to do is we have hydrogen for the lift, but we also have a hot air balloon. So we combine the hydrogen and the hot air balloon for you can control it. You can add a little bit of hot air, and then that'll make it go a bit higher, or you can control it a little bit better. But as you can guess, not the smartest thing in the world. So
put fire near hydrogen is a good idea.
The fire near hydrogen. Whoever thought?
It's fine.
So they lifted off, and the wind was favourable for about 10 minutes, and then 10 minutes later the wind changed. Right. And they blew back into France, and sadly, 12 minutes after takeoff, the spectators, among them de Rosier's fiancée, Susan Dyer, which is a very English name for a French... saw the burner of the hot air balloon drop a little bit, and then a flame shot out of the top of the hydrogen balloon. Horrified and helpless, the onlookers watched as the craft plunged, and de Rosier was killed on impact. Now,
Which was lucky because otherwise the peasants would have flocked around him and beaten the shit out of him anyway.
I know. There is a picture of peasants running in to do something. I don't know if it's helping or hindering.
I'm kind of impressed it just plummeted as opposed to burst into flames because
I know.
I would have thought that would have been quite
The
popular.
hydrogen on top of I don't think there were many people copying the hydrogen on top of the hot air balloon after that.
Why?
The weird thing was, so this was 18 months in, and people all over France were launching balloons. People were doing it, amateurs all over the place. De Rosier was the first person killed by balloons. So,
So two firsts.
yeah, but there had been no real injuries before that, which is really quite weird. Susan Dyer apparently died of grief soon afterwards. So
Died of grief.
Balloonomania, or whatever this weird thing was that had happened. Faded out after about 2 years. So there's 2 years where balloons were just the wildest thing in the world. Now,
That quickly.
some religious people said that balloons should be forbidden because it was an invention of the devil and it eroded people's faith in miracles. I don't think that was why it faded out.
I would hope not, because for fuck's sake.
I mean, probably it faded out because people get bored. No matter what is brand new, people get bored. But 60% of flights ended up in failure, or didn't even take off the ground. They tried and something went wrong, and then
Honestly, not even taking off is that's a bonus as far as failures go.
Sure, yeah. There's far worse failures than that, no doubt.
What happened? We just didn't fly.
Yeah.
Cool.
Versus you crashed horrifically in a flaming ball.
Spectacular. Yeah.
When they didn't take off, the crowds would of course turn hostile and riot. And there was one riot in Bordeaux where 2 men were killed and 2 further were hanged for causing the riot. And so,
A riot. Can you imagine that? This show's boring. Let's just go on a rampage and kill and steal.
where is my balloon?
Exactly. Fuck you. I'm going to kill you and trash your house. It just didn't quite work.
So local governments were not super keen on them after a while. They're like, if you're gonna get really pissy, we're not gonna do these things. So they started banning them. And obviously a lot of balloons caught fire and they would start fires around town. So they're not stoked about that. So the city of Lyon banned hot air balloon flights in 1784. Paris followed by banning balloons that were carrying fireworks, like your balloon firework combination.
Yeah, and to be honest, they should have. And maybe the town I lived in at the time should have done that.
Like
too.
literally, balloons
to be
and
honest,
fireworks.
they probably had.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
No. I know that now.
So pretty soon they said you need to be experienced to fly them, and you got to have a permit. And many of the people that applied to get the license were denied, and so gradually it sort of faded out. So of course balloons didn't disappear. I just want to wrap up. Balloons were still being used. So very early on, people saw military uses for them.
Of course.
I think it was in 1794. The French used them in a battle over the British and Austrian forces, and they won. Napoleon started a hot air balloon regiment in Meudon, and they used it.
Wow, they got laid.
I know. Fly, boys.
I'm with the hot air balloon regiment.
You know that there was a Top Gun movie that came out in 1798 that was all about the hot air balloon regiment.
You fly, boys, you crazy.
And the English did worry that there might be an aerial invasion of French hot air balloon troops, which so sad that never happened.
Fuck, it sounds hilarious. Like, look over the horizon, coming really, really slowly. A bunch of blobs in the sky. I think they're full of hydrogen. Whatever shall we do? I don't know. Fire?
Well, we'll probably have lunch first. We can wait for, we've got a couple of hours.
Then we'll go back to the theories of Agincourt. We'll get some bows and arrows and we'll dip them in oil. I think that will do okay.
So balloons were used in the American Civil War, and they were actually used. I mean, of course, they're used in sort of blimps, to block planes going through in World War II and World War I. Yep. But not a huge part of the military. I'll come to another military use in a bit. 1852, Henry Giffard, he invented the first steam-powered balloon. So it actually was motorized. So that's when a
flying motorcycle from the 1800s. That's
that
wild.
one. Yeah, it is. Yeah. That's when the word dirigible. So dirigible means steerable. Was the first steerable.
That's what that word means.
Yeah. So
not flying, not weird word for balloon. It means steerable.
Steerable. So steerable.
Cars are dirigibles.
Yeah. 1895, Count Ferdinand von Zeppelin.
Oh yeah.
I know, right? He got a band named after
First
him.
child called Lead. That's right.
He patented a rigid airship that combined balloon gas cells with a structural framework. In 1909, DLAG, an acronym for Deutsche Luftschifffahrtsaktiengesellschaft, flawless, which is German for the German Airship Travel Corporation, was the world's first airline. It was launched using Zeppelins in 1909, and it flew quite a lot. Obviously for expensive people. Not expensive people. Now, the story of Zeppelins mostly is thought to end in 1937 with the Hindenburg crash. But when I was looking this up, I was like, oh yeah, okay, how's this go? So in 1937, the Hindenburg, the world's largest passenger Zeppelin, burst into flames while landing in New Jersey after a transatlantic flight, which still would have been, aside from the flamey death, a transatlantic flight back then would have been so cool. The disaster killed 36 people, and it killed the luxury airship travel industry. And I was like, was it this one incident? No. It was preceded by the fiery crash of the British R-38 in 1921, 44 dead. The US Roma in 1922, 34 dead. The French Dixmude in 1923, 52 dead. The British R-101 in 1930, 48 dead. And the USS Akron in 1933, 73 dead. So this is... It's just that they got a photo of it. Seriously, people were doing, and they were burning up all the time. The Hindenburg was not particularly special.
Finally, there was live coverage. Oh, the humanity. Okay, now we've had enough.
I know. It's
like, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me 112 times. Fuck it, we're stopping.
Yeah. So
it's wild.
All right. So 2012, the US Army launched a hybrid airship that can provide surveillance of an area of 21 days nonstop, but the program was killed within 6 months, which I was sad about. Finally, Igor Pasternak, president and CEO of Worldwide Aeros, plans on building a 500-foot-long airship that can carry 66 tons of cargo. So that's in works right now. Montgolfier paper, you can buy it under the name Canson. Produces fine art paper, school drawing paper, and digital fine art and photography papers, sold in 150 countries.
Lovely. So have you been on a balloon?
I've been on a balloon, yes, but
tethered or untethered?
No, it was tethered. So I think it was tethered. Yeah, I haven't been up high. I'm keen, but sadly, key members of my family are not super keen. When the kids are a bit older, I'm very keen to take them. But for me, hot air balloon, it's cool to going up, but you know what? I just the dirigible, like flying over the continent slowly. That's retirement for me. My dream literally would be.
That sounds great.
It takes you a week. It takes you a week to get to Japan on this thing. I'll be like, that is a glorious week. Oh, I'd be so happy.
Oh, but yeah, you've got the full a la carte. What do you call it? Silver service, etc. Every time. It'll be delightful. You always have to wear your whites when you have dinner, proper tie like a gentleman.
Indeed. I would have to, of course, buy some whites and some other...
They sell them at the dirigible airport.
Yeah, no doubt.
Well, I used to work at a restaurant that every year, at least for a while, the town we live in, Canberra, used to have this hot air balloon festival. I don't know if they still do.
They definitely still do.
Okay, they still do.
You really don't get out, do you?
No, I don't get out. I don't need to. I was built for COVID. So that all these tents would get set up with different people selling stuff. And so the restaurant I was working for would sell food there. And so I was cooking there one day and people would line up at the tent and then I hear this noise and this dude in a harness with what looked like a jet engine on his back comes floating in. He's got this little personal balloon. So he's like sitting in a climbing harness with the fire sauce on his back and he's in the queuing up for some pancakes and eggs and bacon.
But as if you wouldn't, I can do this.
Yeah. It was fantastic. That's this so personal balloon thing. So if we could have those and you, I suppose, strap a propeller to your back and you could commute.
Just do it. Just live that dream. See, this is the thing. There were a whole bunch of just amateur people just doing stuff like that and just diving on in. I just think that's
early science. If you survive, it's excellent.
Oh, that's
wild.
Awesome. Yeah. So I'm very jealous of Balloonomania and the wild times that happened then. I would love to fly in Zeppelins. So.
Oh, hell yeah. Sign me up. Sounds great.
The Wholesome Show is me, Will Grant, and him, Rod Lamberts. It's brought to you by the Australian National Centre for the Public Awareness of Ballooning and Science.
Yes, not hydrogen though, because that's crazy.
No hydrogen balloons. No hydrogen.